That's right. We're back to recruiting talk for our Michigan State football Spartans. Big junior day from last weekend. We got Ryan O'Blennis to break it down for us. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe to this here YouTube channel or podcast, however you're consuming this. Thank you very much. And also, thank you to Ryan O'Blennis of Spartans Illustrated for joining today's show. He is all things Michigan State recruiting over there at Spartans Illustrated. And off the heels of a big junior day weekend where Michigan State had a few dozen kids on campus for football, yeah, it's only right that we talk about it. And let's start with the biggest position, one of the biggest names for this 2026 class. We're talking Kayd Coffman, quarterback out of the great state of Michigan, of course. MSU was very early on in his recruitment, gave him one of his first offers, if not the first offer. But then shortly after, you got your Iowa States of the world. You have your Ole Misses of the world giving him an offer. There's been smoke around Pitt as well. But he was over here this last weekend, Ryan. Where do things stand with Kayd Coffman? Are we on the doorstep of a commitment? How serious are the outsiders? Just take this and run about Kayd Coffman, please.
Yeah, so I think, like as you mentioned, Michigan State was kind of his first Power 4 offer. I think he had some MAC offers before that, but Michigan State was the first, Power 4 big program to take a look at him. I know Brian Lindgren had been in communication with him for a long time. He camped at MSU, I think, last June, and that's kind of how we got on their radar. Later in the fall, Lindgren went and watched him play. Eventually they ended up offering him. So Michigan State, they made a great evaluation there. They got in early on him, and now other schools are coming in. Iowa State had been in communication with him a long time too, even though they just kind of recently offered him.
Gotcha.
So I think, those are kind of his two biggest relationships right now, and I see Iowa State as the biggest threat to MSU right now. I still like where Michigan State stands with him, but it doesn't seem like as sure of a thing as it did maybe when they were his only Power 4 offer. But he's an in-state kid, so that's obviously an advantage for Michigan State, a lot closer to home. But this visit on Sunday for Junior Day, I think for him was a lot more about connecting with new quarterbacks coach John Boyer. Like I said before, I think, Brian Lindgren kind of was leading that charge in his recruitment, and I'm sure Lindgren will be involved still to some degree, but
for sure,
at the basketball game, Kaufman was sitting right next to Boyer, that they were chopping it up, getting to know each other. I think they did, like a FaceTime call before that, something like that. I think going into the visit, that's what he was really looking to get out of it was, who is Coach Boyer? How do I fit in with him? Does he still align with me? Our Midwest Rivals national analyst Greg Smith was able to speak to Kaufman after. I spoke to him briefly too, but he gave Greg some pretty good quotes. He said it was a great experience for him. And what stood out the most to him was really being able to connect and get to know Coach Boyer. And, he kind of spent all day with him. He learned his philosophy, what his personality is like. Obviously, things are still pretty early with those two. So, that's going to have to continue to progress. But, it sounded pretty promising. And I think the other thing, too, that's really in Michigan State's advantage and has been since they started recruiting him is that Kaufman sees himself as a very good fit in, Lindgren's offense, Jonathan Smith's offense. The pro style kind of offense that they run, terminology that they use that's similar to the NFL. That's kind of important to him because, like most players, I'm sure, his top goal is to eventually make it to the league. And I think that's, kind of going to go a long way with him in terms of that. Obviously, Michigan State's not the only school who runs a pro-style offense, but it's
right.
Still an advantage. He also got to connect with Jonathan Smith, the head coach. He said kind of as soon as he arrived with his family, Smith immediately went in and sat down with him, answered any of the questions he had. So that made a big impact on his visit as well. He also got to, tour campus and set up. He's been to East Lansing many times now, so I don't know if any of that was new to him. But yeah, and then he checked, got to check out the atmosphere at the Breslin Center, which was electric, and that win over Illinois.
That's right.
And So next up for him is he will actually be going to Iowa State on the 25th. Originally, he was looking at committing January 29th right after that. But since then, he's kind of said that date's not set in stone.
Okay.
Greg and I are still both hearing from him that he still would like to make a decision sometime shortly after that, but I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe it's February, maybe it's March, maybe he continues to push it away, or maybe he sticks to that, late January date. We don't really know yet. It seems like he's still kind of weighing those options, but it does seem like, he could still be more on the early side of deciding, but then, you also now have schools like Ole Miss offering in the mix too. So there's a lot of variables there.
So I'm glad you mentioned Greg Smith because I had this jotted down too. And just like you said, Midwest recruiting guy over at Rivals, he did write in the message board over at Spartans Illustrated that his take is that Michigan State needs to move quickly. Kaufman is clearly on the verge of blowing up, so these might not be the only Power 4 offers that he has out there. Also mentioned, great early evaluation by Smith and company. Do you get the same vibe, too, that Michigan State needs to close this quicker? Is this situation, the longer this is drawn out, the less percentage it is that he actually commits here? Or what's your read on that situation?
I mean, I think Michigan State's done a great job with him so far. Talking to sources at Michigan State, they also now think that he's not as likely to commit as early as maybe he was going to. Although, again, it's still a possibility. We don't have a firm date for him yet outside of that kind of loose date of January 29th. That seems like it could be pushed back. So, I mean, I think what Greg was saying there was, Michigan State has done a good job so far, but with all the attention he's now getting, these other schools coming after him, Iowa State very much in the mix. He's going to visit Iowa State. Michigan State needed to do the best job it possibly could to position itself to still be, at the very top or toward the top of his list. And, I do think that they've done that, but I do think now he's just got more to consider, like I said. So, nothing's a sure thing in recruiting.
No, is that right? No, there's nothing guaranteed. Huh?
And,
it's news to me.
Yeah, it's fluid, as they say. And Kaufman, when he first got the offer from Michigan State, like we said, it was his first Power 4 offer. I remember he told us, him and his mom, basically brought them to tears because of how hard he's been working for that. Obviously, he's an in-state kid. That means a lot to him. So, to say that Michigan State is not at the top of his or toward the top of his list, at least, even with these new schools coming, I don't buy that at all. He's still definitely very high on the Spartans, but to say they're a lock or something, I can't go that far yet.
Sure. More to come with our guy Ryan O'Blennis with Spartans Illustrated, but first, this message is brought to you by Prizepicks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prizepicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prizepicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Right now, for playoff time, there is no better way to get in on the action than with Prizepicks. Now, here's how it works. It's very easy. You pick more or less than on at least 2 players and their stats. If your picks hit, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right, 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. I'm going to get it up again this weekend. Now, last week, we kept it simple. Just 2, more than 250 Lamar Jackson passing yards, and also more than 70 receiving yards for Travis Kelce. And you know what? Kept me engaged in the games. And guys, I'm going to do it all over again this weekend. Ready to run your game this football season? Well, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prizepicks. Again, guys, it's Prizepicks. Run your game. Now, contrary to what I made it sound like, Kayd Coffman wasn't the only kid on campus. There were, again, dozens of other ones. Right. Is there anyone that you think is close to committing? Anyone that is on the doorstep here at all? Or is it still, kind of all in limbo with even the guys that just visited recently?
Yeah, I haven't heard any of them having an immediate timeline. Like I said, Kaufman could be within the next month or so, or he could push it back. I think Eli Bickel is an in-state tight end in-state offensive tackle who Michigan State seems to be very, very high on, Coach M in the offensive line room. So I don't really know his timeline either, but he seems like a kid that Michigan State's really going to go after, and he seems high on the Spartans. I think his cousin was like Matt Costello, who used to play for MSU
Gotcha.
baseball, so he's got family connections there too.
Let's go.
But he doesn't. I've had a hard time kind of getting a hold of him, so I don't really know his timeline. I've talked to his coach a little bit. He's definitely high on the Spartans, but he's got a ton of other offers too. So we'll see how that one goes. Then as far as the other kids who visited, who I've talked to so far, a lot of them have told me that they really want to take an official visit to Michigan State, likely in the summer. So I would imagine for the majority of them, they're not planning to decide until after official visits, sometime in the summer or fall. But again, stuff changes. But yeah, I haven't gotten any tips of any immediate commitments coming off of yesterday or anything like that.
Sure. And obviously, Kayd Coffman is one of these guys that I'll call a needle mover. And everyone that visited East Lansing, hey, you are welcome here. Trust the staff, all that. When it comes to rankings, though, guys that are highly rated, whether it's in-state or out-of-state, just amongst their own peers, who were the other needle movers that visited this weekend, in your opinion, Ryan? Who do we got to keep a close eye on for those that will shift the paradigm of the 2026 class here?
Yeah, so, Michigan State brought in over 30 kids this weekend. 16 of those kids already had offers coming in, and it looks like one of them maybe got the offer on the trip, who looked to be a late addition.
Okay.
I think his name was Anthony Charles, defensive end from the Northeast area, which I also cover for Rivals, but he wasn't on the initial list, so he must have been a late addition. But yeah, so I mean, we talked about Kaufman, we talked about Bickel. I think those two are obviously very high on the board. I know Kaufman is their number one quarterback target, but outside of that, their number one running back target on the board, Kory Amachree.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm saying his name correctly.
I think you are. Yeah. I mean, I'm the last person that should tell you how to say a person's name, but I'm based on how other people have said it too. I think you've nailed it. I think.
Yeah. And his dad played for Michigan State. He plays at Hazlitt, which is close to East Lansing. I think Coach Smith and Coach Lingren's kids maybe also play at Hazlitt.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Or somewhere near there. And then, but obviously he's been to campus 100 times.
Right. Yeah.
He's coming off of a leg injury, but he told me he's expecting to be back in March and he's going to be fully healthy for his senior season. I don't think there's going to be any setbacks there. He's the number one running back target on the board for good reason. He's really, really talented. Got over 30 offers. Really just a complete running back. And he visited actually Saturday, not Sunday, for the junior day, unless he came back Sunday. But I know he was on campus Saturday for a visit, and he actually went to the hockey game instead of the basketball game.
Oh, okay.
Against U of M. So, he's got a lot of options, but Michigan State's, I think always going to kind of be in that race for him. He's a priority running back target for them, and he's somebody that's definitely, you want to keep an eye on as a Michigan State fan. They brought in several other players too. I was talking about Northeast kids. They brought in 4 Russians, defensive ends who have offers. Joshua Pittman.
Good.
Yeah, the Charles kid I mentioned that got the offer. Terry Wiggins, Ashton Blatt. These kids, have all got a relationship with Coach Wilt and Coach Legge, and I think those are, obviously looking to reinforce some of the pass rush in the 2026 class. So
just a little bit, just a little bump up would be nice. I'm not asking a lot here.
Yeah, right. So getting those relationships going, definitely big. CJ Sana, linebacker from Ohio, he was a big visitor. Nick Hankins, cornerback from Illinois. He's another kid with an offer I think they like a lot. Jack Janda, in-state tight end.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Coach Wozniak kind of identified as a target, almost as soon as he got
immediately. Right.
Yeah,
before he was even off the plane, he had an offer out to him. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. And some other ones too. Preston Frizzell, he's another tight end. He's from Ohio. Actually, they brought in several tight ends from Ohio. Joe Caudell, he plays quarterback, I think, mostly for his high school. Michigan State's looking at him as a tight end. I think he's going to be a tight end at the next level.
Gotcha.
Amachree, he's a tight end from Ohio as well, who has like tons and tons of offers. Very talented. So Brock Williams was a 2027 tight end that they brought in from Illinois for junior day. So a lot of edge rushers, a lot of tight ends on campus this weekend. Tyron Wortham's a wide receiver from Florida who made the trip all the way to East Lansing for junior day. So
love it.
And then Tayshawn Bardo, he's I was talking to him after his trip, and he was already pretty high on Michigan State. I think this trip really, he told me Michigan State's now like at the top of the top for him. He really got to connect with Courtney Hawkins, got to connect with Coach Smith. So I think a lot of these kids they're building relationships with. A lot of these kids have already told me after the visit they'd like to take official visit to Michigan State. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, there were a pretty good crop of kids who have offers who they're interested in, who are on campus, and there were several others who they're looking at, don't quite have offers yet, but made the trip to campus for junior day that they're going to be monitoring. So definitely a nice group that was in town.
I like Amachree's decision-making already, going to the hockey game on Saturday night instead of doing whatever I and a lot of other MSU/Detroit Lions fans were doing. That was probably a lot more enjoyable for the young man than we're flipping the page anyway. But kind of on the lines of that, of like, going to the hockey game in Amachree's instance, or for most of these kids, the basketball game on Sunday, PGH wrote in a question to us here, lockedonspartans@gmail.com or Sheehan_ on Twitter. Any way you guys have a question to shoot out, those are the two best ways to do it. He wrote in, it was a big recruiting weekend for football. How important is having a big-time Big Ten basketball matchup to show how electric the fan base can be? Do the football players start to imagine what that might feel like at Spartan Stadium if they choose the green and white? I think it's just like the easy answer of like, that certainly cannot hurt, especially with, as a fever-pitched game like that was on Sunday. Just, two top 20 teams, noon, CBS. Like that's only got to help Michigan State's cause here, right? Is it that easy of an answer, Ryan?
Yeah. I mean, so far the feedback that we've gotten was that, the atmosphere was kind of amazing there at the Breslin Center. Obviously, that was a really back and forth game. Like you said, two top 20 teams, two of the best in the Big Ten going at it. Nationally televised. Like, his own was, his own and the whole Breslin crowd was
popping. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think a source told David Harns after that, the atmosphere was electric in there, and they couldn't have asked for a much better, kind of display of that. And, they think that really is going to help the football recruits who were there, because they see that passion from the Michigan State fans for basketball. Think of what 80,000 MSU fans in Spartan Stadium will look like. And what's the word? Synergy kind of between the basketball and football program. Coach Izzo's probably the greatest ambassador to Michigan State that there is. And so, I think it definitely helped. It's going to go a long way. And that's a memory for those kids who are on campus to that's going to last a long time in their minds when they think about Michigan State. So definitely will be helpful.
And I'm glad PGH brought up that question. I'm glad you're here too, because it's a good question. And also, well, you have the insight. It's not just, what I say, the fan with just a microphone and a webcam. Like, actually hearing from the prospects themselves and hearing that, the energy actually does make a difference. Well, it's not just, what we think as fans. There is some actual proof in that pudding. More to come, guys, but first, new friend of the program, it's TALKSPACE. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where TALKSPACE comes in. TALKSPACE, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With TALKSPACE, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and is convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your own home, and you can even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, TALKSPACE is covered by many insurance plans, and for those uninsured, mostly, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. And as a listener of this podcast, you will get $80 off your first month with TALKSPACE when you go to TALKSPACE.com/lockedoncollege and enter promo code SPACE80. That's space, the number 80, all one word, space 80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to TalkSpace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. Again, guys, one more time, TalkSpace.com/LockedOnCollege, promo code SPACE80. Moving it to off of recruiting right now, we're kind of in that lull of the offseason where the transfer portal is kind of said and done for this time being. Of course, the other spring window will open up right now. Is it completely at a lull, Ryan? Is the staff looking around for other positions right now, or just where do we stand with the portal right now?
Yeah, the winter cycle is done. All of those 16 commits are already enrolled and on campus. Yep. But after spring ball, there is going to be some more movement. There'll probably be a handful of kids who end up hitting the portal. And then I know that Michigan State is looking for another cornerback, probably another safety, another rush end, and then possibly another tight end. That's what I've been told that they'll be targeting for the spring, but this stuff is all fluid, so things can change. Obviously they had a tight end committed out of the portal for roughly 5 minutes, and I think
it was 6 minutes actually. Yeah. I don't want to correct you, but it was a full 6. He got up there.
He made the decision that he wanted to go closer to home and go to California, which I can't blame a kid for that.
Sure.
I think it's like 20 or 30 minutes away from where he grew up. But I think if MSU is looking at a tight end, they'll probably look at somebody in that same kind of mold that has, I'm guessing, multiple years of eligibility, less somebody who can help out blocking, somebody like that, not necessarily somebody who's going to come in and make an immediate impact. MSU's returning several tight ends at the position already. They could find somebody like that, but I think, mainly a depth piece, but, the other 3 positions, cornerback, rush end, safety, those are probably all guys that they're going to look at to try to come in and compete right away. They've already brought in several cornerbacks, defensive backs, and a couple of rush ends in the winter cycle, but they're still, always looking to improve the roster as best they can. Obviously, Michigan State had that stretch we kind of alluded to earlier of where they struggled with the pass rush. And so, anything they can do to bolster that, I think they're going to do to make the roster better. So those are kind of the positions that I'm looking out for in the spring.
We had the conversation on and off just throughout the portal cycle of which position group has gotten the most help out of the portal, just on paper. Of course, there's still a lot to go in the offseason. Got to see these guys actually play the game. But on paper, for the longest time, it was wide receivers, Amachree, Amachree. Of course, you bolstered some depth pieces with, who's the guy from Valdosta State? Rod Bullard, I believe the kid's name is, Evan Boyd from CMU. But then you get Connor Moore, right? And stacked on the top of Matt Gulbin out of the portal. You get a good depth piece, potentially starter in Luka Vincic too. Caleb Carter, of course, has a skrillion snaps in his career of experience. I think maybe now it might have been the offensive line that got better on paper just in this portal cycle so far, but I don't want to be stuck in my own vacuum here, Ryan. So what say you? Or are you going to go to the other side of the ball? Does anywhere in defense tickle your fancy? Where do they get better on either side of the ball, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's between wide receiver and offensive line. Obviously Connor Moore, arguably the biggest single pickup of the portal, an FCS All-American. I think people need to understand, too, he is going from FCS to Big Ten ball in the FBS.
Correct.
Ahead of ourselves. There's still going to be a learning curve there and jumping up in competition. But he is somebody who's going to immediately come in and, probably start, if not compete and start and, rotate in heavily. But yes, I would assume he's going to start. Like you said, with Gulbin at center, Vincent at guard, Carter competing at guard, plus everybody who they're returning, that offensive line, at the very least, the floor has been raised. There's depth there now,
which is great. That's what we need.
What happened early with Michigan State, suffering multiple injuries in the interior of the offensive line. Now they got guys, those 3 interior guys that they're bringing in all have experience playing guard and center.
Mm-hmm.
That they can move them around. Like I said, the plan is to play Gulbin at center and the other 2 at guard. But, if needed, they can also play center. He can play guard if needed. So I think versatility with those guys was something important to them too. But tackle was obviously the biggest glaring need, and bringing in more is huge. But yeah, wide receiver too. You lost Montorie Foster, who I actually thought had a pretty solid senior season.
Okay.
He wasn't spectacular, but he was solid. And then MSU lost a bunch of receivers to the portal who entered it. But you look at the room now compared to last year, and it looks drastically better to me. MSU's receivers really struggled to create separation last year. And outside of guys like Nick Marsh, there really wasn't a difference maker in that group. So now you're bringing in guys who have done it, at the FBS level or Division II level for Bullard, but he is very athletic. He's somebody that they can move around. Amachree is a guy they're going to put in the slot. Omari Kelly's going to be a guy on the outside with Marsh. All these guys can be moved around. And then Boyd, he's like 6'3", 210, big body, outside type dude. And then you're bringing in Braylon Collier, bringing in a couple other freshmen, and you got Jalen Brown, Austin Clay, guys like that returning, and then Alante Brown also returning, who's a veteran of the group. So yeah, I mean, all of a sudden this wide receivers group is now very deep. And Kelly, I think he's going to make an immediate impact. Amachree, I think he's going to make an immediate impact. The other two transfers, are going to battle for playing time too. And then obviously Marsh is going to be kind of the star of the show. But, when teams are double teaming him, now you got all these other weapons you can throw to. So help Aiden Childs. That's a close debate. I think I'd still maybe slightly give the edge to wide receivers, but it's basically like 1A, 1B to me between wide receivers, offensive line.
We'll take it.
Yeah, and they brought in several guys in the secondary too on defense who are going to come in and kind of compete right away for playing time. So, they did a good job of raising the floor, filling holes, bringing in the guys that they needed to create. We'll see how many of those guys will be, huge difference makers, but I think the depth of this team, the floor has been raised, and they're going to add a few more in the spring portal, like we said. So it's not done yet. They're also going to sign a couple more guys in the February signing period. So the roster is still constantly being built, but it's looking like it's going to be a more competitive roster for 2025.
There we go. That's what we're talking about. Well, Ryan, can't thank you enough for your time, insight, knowledge. Anything you want to plug here before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your week here right now?
No, just please come subscribe to us at Spartans Illustrated.
There we go. Do it, because it's not just Ryan over there doing the great work over there, folks. They got a whole team over there over at Spartans Illustrated, and we're going to be back. Thank you again, Ryan. Thank you, all the listeners, the viewers. We will be back because we do this 5 days a week here at Lockdown Spartans. Until then, hey, have a great day. Have a great rest of the week, everyone. Love you all. Go Green.